In this video, we're going to take a look at painting weights. Now, we've already bound our skeleton to our crow geometry, and we used a geodesic voxel binding, which yields really good results. But nevertheless, at some point, we're going to have to go in and fine-tune those weights. We still don't have a binding method that is absolutely perfect. The leg, when we pull that up or rotate it, we can see that we have vertices in the back there that are coming off of the tail. When we pull that up, those vertices start to come down. And the same thing up here, we're getting just a little bit of movement that we really just don't want. It's just not very accurate. We have such low geometry that we're going to have a little bit of this type of movement, and sometimes we want it, otherwise the geometry kind of pulls in an awkward way. But we're going to look at how we can reduce that weight or remove that weight altogether. And we'll do so through the Paint Weights tool. I first need to select my geometry. Then I can choose Skin, Paint Skin Weights. And we're going to open those options in order to bring up our Paint Weight tool. And this will just have all of our settings in it. But most importantly, it shows us the actual joint that we'll be painting weights for. So our column here, Influences, lists the hierarchy bound to the geometry. And now you can really see, too, why our naming conventions are so important. If all of these here were just listed as joint, we wouldn't have any idea which wing this was, or even if it was part of the wing. It could be an extension of the body. We just don't know. But since we have decent naming conventions, we can just go through and quickly see all the joints that we're trying to affect. So in this case, I just want to focus on the left leg. But when we move that joint, we can see that it's moving from the tail and the body, which means that those joints, the body or the root and the tail joint, we're going to need to modify as well. So one of the things we can do here is narrow this down so that I don't have to scroll back and forth between my influences in order to get to the joint that I want to affect. So to see this in action here, if I select the root, I will then see how the root is influencing the vertices that it's attached to, or the vertices that are around it. You can see that we get a gray scale map that shows up on the body. Essentially, the white areas are showing me how much influence is being applied to those areas or to those vertices. So we see kind of a gray area here. This would imply that we have about a 50% influence from this joint alone. We really can't tell what other joints are there, but we can click through and see there's the body being this joint, and it gets highlighted, and you can see these others here are basically deselected. But this joint is highlighted, and we have a really strong white there, implying it has a full weighting value or a value of 1. Then we can go down, and there's the first joint, the wing, that's this guy right here, and wing 2, so on and so forth. But I'm looking to focus on the root as well as the left leg, which is down here in our list, so it's a little far away. So what I'm going to end up doing here is selecting all of the joints that I want to influence. First, we're just going to study them here. The knee, I'm not going to need to affect that one. That one looks pretty good. So really just the left leg joint. We can just click it again to see. It's bleeding out up into the wing and a little bit into the tail. I'm going to want to remove that weight. So I want the left leg. And then whatever other joint is affecting these vertices up here around there. Scroll up, and we could guess that the root joint, definitely, lots of action there. Maybe the body, I think there's a little bit right there. Probably not the wing, but we'll just see. Possibly, so let's include that. But I think we could get away with just wing 1. And then we'll probably need the tail, so let's go down and just click on there. And that one definitely too. While I was selecting these, I was holding Control, which then just added to my selection, just like what we would do in our interface. Once I have those selected, I can then choose the thumbtack here and pin all of those joints so that I don't have to see any of the other ones. Now I can just kind of freely click through here and jump back and forth quickly so that I can paint these weights. Let's go to the left leg. I want to remove the weighting from this right here. I don't want the left leg to influence this vertex at all. So with the left leg selected, I'm going to scroll down here. And what we're looking for is the value. We're painting skin weight, and I'm going to change this value to 0. I want to have no influence. So I'll just come back and then left click and paint. There, I have just removed all the weighting from that vertex coming from the left leg. Now all the other joints are going to update accordingly. And that's the tricky part here. Since I removed weight from this vertex, that weight then has to be added to something else. Why? Because we have to total a value of 1. Now if I go to the root, I can see that now that has more weight. The body, that might have just balanced out just a little bit there. So the other ones are looking pretty good. Let's remove the weight from here as well, going down into the tail. I don't want to hit the leg, so I'm going to kind of start back here and just kind of move my way into it. And you can see how that kind of gradually painted down. This is because of the profile brush that I'm using, which is right here. It's a soft brush. But since we have such a low amount of vertices, and since I know exactly the weighting that I'm after, I could use the solid brush here and then come back in and just paint directly to it. Now it looked like I hit some of those other vertices, so I'm just going to hit undo and change my brush size. And we can do this with the hotkey of B, B as in boy, and just decrease that by scrolling left or to the right, and come in and just hit that vertex right there without affecting any of the other vertices. Let's go ahead and hit that one as well, and that guy there, and that guy. So now we've isolated that upper leg deformation just to this edge loop right here. Let's try it out. So now we'll select that joint. I'll hit E for rotate, and now we can rotate that. And we can see that that worked, but I am still affecting that vertex up there. So we'll go back to our paint weights. Left leg is selected. But look at that. I can't really tell that there's anything there. Well, what we can do is instead of using a black and white grayscale map, we can switch and use a heat map or the color map. I definitely have a lot of stray values. Now that blue is the lowest value, and you can see here on the graph, the red would be the highest, blue is the lowest. These could be super small weights, and they probably are. I'm going to get rid of them all the same. We'll just hit all of these. We don't want the leg affecting any of those areas, especially on the other side of the crow's body. Okay, those are painted out. I'm going to again select my joint and rotate it. There we go, nice and solid. Still affecting that one right there, but I think I kind of like that. I kind of want to pull on the back of the tail there just a little bit. Now, since I painted the weights there, I then want to transfer those weights to the other side. We can do that by going to Skin and choosing Mirror Skin Weights. But we'll take a look at that in greater detail in another video.